evening, everyone. Good evening, Minnesota. Minnesota National Guard, under the command of General John Jensen, is deployed. We'll talk about the numbers that are out there and the mission specific that they're employing. Colonel Langer is currently at the 5th Precinct, holding that ground with the State Patrol. DPS and the folks with under DNR are out there, and our local partners in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and our joint powers agreements are assisting. The situation is incredibly dangerous. The situation is fluid. It is dynamic. I would first of all thank all Minnesotans who chose to protect our cities, who chose to protect their neighbors and stay home. Thank you for that. To all of the first responders who are out there, from firefighters to National Guard to line crews to utilities workers who are out there to keep us safe, I want to thank you for that. Law enforcement is responding the best they can in this situation. We'll get you all of the numbers that are out there. I want to say, first of all, I myself can fully understand the rage. I spoke this evening to George Floyd's siblings quite extensively. I understand that rage. We've talked about it. We understand what has to happen. What's going on out there right now is not that. The wanton destruction, and specifically of ethnic businesses that took generations to build, are being torn down. All of those infrastructures of civil society and the things that make our city great, which lends me to believe as we look at this, the disenfranchisement that went with what we witnessed with George's death is one thing, but the absolute chaos. This is not grieving, and this is not making a statement that we fully acknowledge needs to be fixed. This is life-threatening, dangerous to the most well-qualified forces that are out there facing this. So I want to acknowledge that. I'm deeply concerned with the people who you need to go home. You need to go home. The purpose of this, and we're seeing it spread up across the country, is making it more difficult to get to the point where we can deal with these issues. Our neighbors are afraid. People are watching this across there, and they want to know what's happening. We promised you today, and I want to thank Mayor Fry for the leadership today, and I think the issue of coordination and communicating together. This is the largest civilian deployment in Minnesota history that we have out there today. And quite candidly, right now, we do not have the numbers. We cannot arrest people when we're trying to hold ground because of the sheer size, the dynamics, and the wanton violence that's coming out there. Colonel Langer spoke about this often, of seasoned folks who have also deployed overseas and seen this, and now seeing this here in our neighborhoods. We will talk about ways and the resources that we have left. But to put this into perspective, the force that we have out there now is about 3 times larger than the one in the 60s, which was the largest during the race riots. And they're out there right now. And the capacity to be able to do offensive actions, and they're out there doing that, arresting the folks that we can. But as you've seen, there's already shots being fired back at our people. This arson that is taking place puts many people at risk. Our firefighters are specifically and very open to target, and Minneapolis Fire has been responding heroically. And I tell you, all the citizens, the response time is fast as we want to get it. And that responsibility, as I said today, for coordination lies with us. I will take responsibility for the underestimating the wanton destruction and the size of this crowd. We have deployed a force that I think, as we sat down together and talked about, would have in any other civilian military or civilian police operation worked. But the terrifying thing is to hear people who've seen this, and myself of looking at this, it resembles more of a military operation at times now, as especially ringleaders moving from place to place. So I would ask all of us to, again, go home to protect our assets, understanding that the priority of this mission today and the plan to do it was to deploy the assets that we had, to work in coordination and beef up what we had to do very, very quickly in command and control of those, put a joint force together to first and foremost protect life, followed by protecting property, followed by restoring order. And the issue, as I've said this time and time again, whether it was something that now seems so simple to do stay-at-home orders about COVID, is to try and get the situation under control to protect all those things. But there is a compact that goes in civilized society that you have to have social buy-in. And so with the elements that are out there now, they're stopping semis by blocking roads and then raiding what's in them. This is not about George's death. This is not about inequities that were real. This is about chaos being caused. And so my responsibility on this, and I do want to thank the mayor, executing a plan is very difficult. And I think the frustrations we all feel certainly isn't aimed at the mayor. He's performing admirably and doing everything possible. I accept that responsibility. He's here today asking and calling hourly, where can we move? How do we coordinate? So Mayor Fry, I want to thank you. The same thing with Mayor Carter of executing together. This is an operation that has never been done in Minnesota. The scope of this has now reached globally, or excuse me, across the nation. We were in contact today and had an extensive conversation, General Jensen, Commissioner Harrington and I, with the Secretary of Defense and General Milley, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, to talk about assets and way that we can help to assess the situation as they're seeing it on the ground and to put those things into a plan to operate today. That plan is not changing. Our folks are out there as we speak right now doing this. Our intention is still to do those very same things, protect the lives of Minnesotans, to try and protect as much property as we can and try to restore order on the streets. I have to do that in a way that protects those who are out there doing that, to ask them to go in a forward motion to try and to get some of these people. They are well coordinated. They will flank these groups. They will do everything possible to cause that destruction. So with that being said, I'm going to have Mayor Fry come up. We'll have our folks talk about it, and we'll talk about what the next steps are, because I want to be clear, we're about 72 hours into this. The mayor's quick action of activating the National Guard, I believe, protect as much as we could. I think now, as we think about this and we're this far into this, it seems almost impossible. It was 2 days ago from an activation. We went today of planning tonight for what tomorrow is going to look like, because I think Minnesotans need to recognize, and we clearly recognize this, what you see tonight will replicate tomorrow unless we change something in what we're doing. We changed that today in a way that was unprecedented in the amount of numbers, the execution of the plan, and the quality of the first responders who are out there. You have veterans of combat tours overseas. You have state patrol who are seasoned. You have local police and firefighters who have been doing this for decades and are the best at what they do. They're just not used to doing it where you have wanton destruction. And the challenge that we face and the challenge that the mayor faces, we have to do it with ensuring the safety of those people, ensuring that there are legitimate people who earlier want to try and express their grief. The folks who are out there right now want nothing more than entice into conflict, entice something that sets this off even further, entices our folks to get in a situation where we start to lose life. And so that adds the complexity to it. If it were as simple as just push them and move them back, that would be one thing. They cannot do that. So I want to just reiterate that Minnesotans deserve a plan to try and get this. We need to assess that with all of the tools that we have, with the experience that we've seen in this. We are certainly in contact with our neighboring states and cooperations, as well as the federal government, to think about the best way to do this. The situation tomorrow will be increasingly more difficult because this has spread to other cities in a serious way, which makes the challenge of civil order even that much more difficult. But I do want to, and just clarify to my friend and someone who's led in this, and a mayor who should never be put in a position that he was put in, to try and respond. There are a limited number of resources that any city has, and this force that's out there right now bent on this is simply overwhelming what we have on the ground. And so at this point, it becomes more of a hold what we have and do the best we can. So I want to thank you, Mayor Fry. I want to thank you for basically being up for 72 hours and every minute picking up the phone and continuing to adapt to this situation. So, Mayor.